This is about the only time I've ever seen a coconut crab eat a coconut, when somebody had opened one and left it behind. In reality, coconut is not high on the food list for coconut crabs, but everybody calls them coconut crabs. Out here, rats with their very sharp teeth can gnaw right through the side of a fibrous coconut, make a perfect round hole to the inside, and then gnaw into the hard nut to get to the meat. Coconut crabs don't have that luxury of sharp rat's teeth, so it's a lot of work to try to pull the fibrous husk away and work their way down to the nut. But once they do get that far, they have their own very special technique to get into the nut, which I'll show you at the end of this video. But coconut crabs, they're not fussy. They'll eat anything. They eat dead birds, dead rats, fish that wash up on shore, feces laying on the ground, microbia. They're excellent scavengers that help to keep these islands clean. Coconut crabs have an incredible sense of smell. They can smell a dead bird or an open coconut from a long way off, and that's why this crab has come out during the day to feast on this open coconut. They're also excellent climbers. They can climb a coconut tree no problem at all, just as well as rats. They may not be able to climb out onto skinny branches of a tree like a rat can, but they do very well for climbing trees, and if there's any nesting birds, they have no problem eating whatever's in that nest. But one thing they don't do is climb up coconut trees to gnaw away on the nuts, to drop them down on the ground so they have something to eat. There's plenty of coconuts already on the ground all over these islands wherever coconut palms exist. Coconut palms are not necessarily indigenous to coral atolls. A scrub brush environment more like this would be the natural environment. In the 1920s and 30s, there is a big commercial push to clear coral atolls of the natural environment and plant rows and rows and rows of coconut palms for the production of coconut oil. Beginning in the mid-1980s, coconut oil was slowly replaced by soybean oil and palm oil. So nowadays, a lot of these old plantations have been abandoned or just have very little economic viability anymore. There's still islanders in the Pacific that will open coconuts and dry the white meat into copra from which the coconut oil is squeezed, but it's a lot of hard work for very little money these days. So I wonder, way back before these islands were so heavily populated with coconut palms, what were coconut crabs called? It wasn't really necessarily their indigenous food. Now, coconut crabs start their life as plankton free-floating in the oceans. And as they grow, they will eventually wash up near a rocky shore where they drop to the bottom and grow. Once they have their legs and their claws and they're old enough, they'll crawl out of the ocean onto shore for their new terrestrial life, where they will look for an open shell that they can crawl into for protection and carry on their back, the same way that hermit crabs do. But once they outgrow all the local shells, they're on their own, walking around in the bush, unprotected. Coconut crabs mature in 5 years and can live up to 60 years. And they don't get much bigger than this. This is about the biggest crab I've seen on Chagos. In other islands, they do get a little bigger, like out in the Pacific. And I have seen pictures of some extremely large coconut crabs. But not here, not in these islands. So there must be different species. See, this guy isn't very big. Right now it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's been raining today, so it's dark. These guys are out feeding. Normally they don't come out during the day, but there's so many coconut crabs on this island. They're just everywhere, so it's not unusual to see them during the day. Coconut crabs across the Pacific and the Indian Ocean and many places are now endangered. They've just been wiped out by humans. So they're protected. It's best just to leave them alone, maybe feed them a coconut now and then. In other areas, say like through the Pacific, you would have to put bait out, tie a coconut to a tree, and lure the coconut crabs out at night. So I'll show you how to do that right here. So if you don't see any coconut crabs around during the day, which normally you don't, they're all hiding. They only come out at night in most places, but there's an abundance of them on this island, so we do see them in the morning and occasionally during the day. But you can take an opened coconut, you open it with your axe, right in half, dig out some of these fibers, just lift them up, just enough to pass a rope under. So now you can tie this to the trunk of a tree before sundown when it's convenient for you, and that you can see well, and then come back, oh, maybe 2 hours after dark. And you'll find coconut crabs trying to drag this away back to their house. Well, here's some evidence that coconut crabs actually do break into coconuts. There's a lot of fibers here on the ground surrounding a hole that goes into the ground. And here's a broken open coconut. Rather old, but still it's evidence. I had been wondering, how in the world can a coconut crab get into a hard nut? It's not like a rat that has teeth and they can just bore a hole right in there as the size of their own body, then they slip in and eat all the meat. But it looks here as though this crab did not go in through the eyes. He made a hole actually through the softer mouth area and then enlarged that. And here's another old shell. The eye's intact and the mouth is gone, so that must be how they get inside. Sometimes you just nibble away on the whole shell. But it would have to be the larger crabs that do this, that are strong enough, big enough. And this guy living in the hole is a big coconut crab. Bigger than what I've normally seen out here. He's just daring us to come any closer. That's all right. A cruiser I recently talked to who's been living for years in the tropics around the world said that yes, in fact, coconut crab meat does taste different from region to region. In the Pacific, they aren't so great. In the Indian Ocean, they're very nice. The claws and the legs, nice white meat, and it tastes like any other oceanic crab. But certainly not like coconut. So have a happy life there, Mr. Crab. Also, I have seen coconut crabs out on the beach at night, and they're much smaller ones, and they're sifting through the sand for little bits of whatever, but they're foraging like any other crab would out on the beach. Now here's a baby coconut crab. They're cousins of hermit crabs, and they start out life just like a hermit crab, and they'll live in small shells, and as they grow bigger they find a larger shell to live in until there's just no more shells around big enough to house them. And this is about as big of a shell I've seen here in Chagos. So it won't be long before this guy is out of his home and he's going to be traveling around in the jungles here without a fortress on his back. And if there are no other shells available, why not a coconut shell? What a perfect fit. So coconut crabs throughout the tropical regions are protected in some areas in the Pacific, in some areas they are not. Same in the Indian Ocean, so it's best to check and see what the regulations are wherever you are sailing. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and if it has, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe on the screen down below. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you soon.